Apple's AI strategy, privacy over publicity at WWDC 2025. Apple's announcements during the Worldwide Developers Conference, WWDC 2025, were muted on the AI front, focusing more on user-friendly and ChatGPT-enabled features. While the bulk of the software updates appeared incremental in nature, analysts told Business Line the slowdown on AI is likely deliberate to focus on user privacy, in line with the privacy-first image preferred by Apple. However, Sanchit Gogia, CEO and chief analyst at the Greyhound Research, argued that Apple's AI rollout was never designed to boost share prices overnight, but to reinforce user trust over quarters. Apple's AI stance may frustrate markets seeking moonshots, but earns trust where it matters most, with enterprise leaders in healthcare, public services, and financial services. The company's ecosystem model allows it to integrate AI incrementally, without the turbulence seen in cloud-first generative platforms, said Gogia, pointing out that as per Greyhound CIO Pulse 2025, around 49% of CIOs said they prefer delayed rollout over a misstep. As for the integration of ChatGPT, Gogia said the OpenAI model helped fill creative gaps, while Apple Intelligence optimized for on-device efficiency. As quoted in the Hindu Business Line, in an article authored by Valluri Sanjiri published on June 10, 2025, beyond the media quote, our view in full. Press for time? You can focus solely on the Greyhound flashpoints that follow. Each one distills the full analysis into a sharp, executive-ready takeaway, combining our official standpoint, validated through Pulse data from ongoing CXO trackers, and grounded in Fieldnotes from real-world advisory engagements. Apple's AI Reticence at WWDC 2025 signals strategic caution, not capability deficit. Greyhound Flashpoint. Apple's WWDC 2025 was a deliberate exercise in restraint, with AI positioned as privacy first, not publicity first. While Microsoft and Google dazzled with generative breakthroughs, Apple quietly introduced Apple Intelligence, a localized, opt-in AI framework that trades scale for sovereignty. Per Greyhound CIO Pulse 2025, only 38% of CIOs believe first-mover advantage trumps compliance, user trust, and implementation maturity. Apple's strategy mirrors this shift. Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. Greyhound standpoint. According to Greyhound Research, Apple's AI posture is no accident. It's engineered for alignment with consumer trust, developer control, and ecosystem longevity. By embedding intelligence into functions like Mail, Notes, and Siri, Apple is rejecting standalone chatbots in favor of contextual, purpose-fit models. The decision to underplay AI rhetoric isn't a technology deficit, but a governance play, avoiding last year's WWDC missteps where overpromised features failed to ship. Apple has chosen credibility over velocity, positioning AI as ambient, not centerpiece. Greyhound Pulse. Greyhound CIO Pulse 2025 reveals 65% of surveyed CIOs across regulated industries cite privacy-first architecture as a key differentiator when selecting AI solutions. 54% explicitly prefer modular deployments where general-purpose models augment, rather than replace, native logic. Apple's emphasis on-device inference and limited cloud fallback aligns directly with this enterprise preference. Greyhound Fieldnote. Per a recent Greyhound Fieldnote from a Nordic telecom, a privacy breach during a third-party AI assistant trial led to enterprise-wide AI lockdown. Subsequent pilots have focused on sandboxed, opt-in interfaces for employee tools. During board-level evaluation, Apple's AI surfaced as favorable for its alignment with GDPR frameworks and local device execution. The firm is now prioritizing apps that mirror Apple's zero-export AI architecture. Apple's conservative AI rollout draws caution, but not crisis. Greyhound Flashpoint. Apple's measured rollout of Apple Intelligence has raised eyebrows among investors, but not red flags among CIOs. While WWDC 2025 lacked the generative spectacle seen at Google and Microsoft events, it reinforced Apple's identity as a company that ships with discipline. Per Greyhound CIO Pulse 2025, 57% of global CIOs see AI caution as strategic maturity, not stagnation, especially in contexts where ungoverned AI rollout could backfire. Greyhound standpoint. According to Greyhound Research, Apple's AI stance may frustrate markets seeking moonshots, but earns trust where it matters most, with enterprise leaders in healthcare, public services, and financial services. The company's ecosystem model allows it to integrate AI incrementally, without the turbulence seen in cloud-first generative platforms. While its stock briefly dipped post-WWDC, Apple's AI rollout was never designed to boost share prices overnight. It was designed to reinforce user trust over quarters, not quarters. Greyhound Pulse. Greyhound CIO Pulse 2025 finds that 63% of IT decision-makers across highly regulated markets prioritize explainability and user permissioning over open-ended model power. Apple's AI messaging, which avoided hallucination-prone narratives and stuck to use case fidelity, was favorably received in compliance-driven boardrooms. The only undercurrent of concern was Apple's perceived slowness compared to hyperscalers. But even there, 49% of CIOs said they prefer delayed rollout over a misstep. Greyhound Fieldnote. Per a recent Greyhound Fieldnote from a South Korean financial institution, executive teams paused deployment of a Gen AI-powered customer assistant after a regulatory audit flagged ambiguity in data routing. Apple's opt-in AI model, where no data leaves the device without user permission, was cited as the reference benchmark during rescoping. While the firm continues to trial multiple providers, Apple's implementation is now shortlisted for in-device service flows. Apple's ChatGPT integration balances capability gaps with compliance guarantees. Greyhound Flashpoint. Apple's WWDC 2025 integration of ChatGPT is not surrender, it's orchestration. With Apple Intelligence optimized for on-device efficiency, OpenAI's model fills creative gaps under strict opt-in conditions. Per Greyhound CIO Pulse 2025, 52% of CIOs prefer hybrid AI portfolios that combine internal logic with external intelligence. Apple's approach blends model strength with trust scaffolding, an architecture of optionality. Greyhound Standpoint. According to Greyhound Research, Apple's use of ChatGPT reflects a nuanced dual-rail strategy. Its own models handle privacy-critical functions locally, while ChatGPT supports expansive creative tasks like visual transformations and extended Q&A. This design acknowledges both the present performance delta and the need for transparency. Critically, Apple ensures user data is neither shared by default nor stored without consent, avoiding pitfalls that have plagued competitors. Greyhound Pulse. Greyhound CIO Pulse 2025 shows 61% of enterprise IT leaders favor AI architectures where user context and inference control remain local, while extensibility can be layered via APIs or plugins. Apple's implementation, where ChatGPT is only invoked when explicitly authorized, fits this exact preference. The model fallback is not a compromise, but a conscious containerization of intelligence. Greyhound Fieldnote. Per a recent Greyhound Fieldnote from a UK-based electronics retailer, developers building a customer-facing generative assistant were forced to abandon a third-party AI SDK due to poor API, permissioning, and data exposure risks. During reevaluation, Apple's ChatGPT access, framed as strictly opt-in and permission-routed, was viewed as a superior fallback layer, especially for image manipulation use cases. The team is now designing the assistant with Apple's privacy-preserving integration logic as its core blueprint. Apple's AI privacy architecture sets the new bar for opt-in intelligence. Greyhound Flashpoint. Apple's AI integration strategy is a case study in sovereign-by-design intelligence. At WWDC 2025, the company introduced system-level AI tools that ensure user data stays local by default and only interacts with external models, like ChatGPT, on explicit consent. Per Greyhound CIO Pulse 2025, 72% of CIOs deem opt-in modularity and data export transparency as critical to AI adoption in their enterprises. Greyhound Standpoint. According to Greyhound Research, Apple's privacy architecture represents the strongest implementation of user-governed AI among platform vendors. By ensuring that AI-enhanced features like image transformation, summarization, and on-screen assistance operate within sandbox environments unless permissioned otherwise, Apple neutralizes major risk vectors associated with enterprise AI deployment. Unlike many peers, it's not merely AI-aware, it's privacy-native. Greyhound Pulse. Greyhound CIO Pulse 2025 shows that 68% of CIOs in banking and healthcare sectors now rate vendor privacy guarantees above model benchmarking scores. Apple's public commitment that no personal data is shared with OpenAI unless authorized, and that most processing occurs locally, is resonating with security-conscious buyers. Greyhound Fieldnote. Per a recent Greyhound Fieldnote from Singapore-based digital insurer, security and data risk officers greenlit an Apple AI feature pilot after confirming no telemetry or personally identifiable information was exported during trials. This was in contrast to prior OpenAI integrations that failed internal compliance testing. Apple's privacy disclosures, coupled with visible data permission prompts, were cited as confidence enablers. Apple Intelligence is optimized for fidelity, not frontier model supremacy. Greyhound Flashpoint. Apple Intelligence is not aiming to match GPT-4o or Gemini in model breadth. It's tuned for contextual fidelity and latency. WWDC 2025 confirmed that Apple's in-device model architecture prioritizes control, task scoping, and predictability over internet-scale cognition. Per Greyhound CIO Pulse 2025, 57% of CIOs value fit-for-purpose models above open-ended generalization in production deployments. Greyhound Standpoint. According to Greyhound Research, Apple's intelligence models reflect a design thesis rooted in privacy, explainability, and performance per watt efficiency. While GPT-4 and Gemini dominate multimodal benchmarks, Apple is not in that arena. Its models are engineered for low-latency summarization, classification, and system-native augmentation. This isn't a trade-down, it's a vertical alignment to its ecosystem. Greyhound Pulse. Greyhound CIO Pulse 2025 highlights that only 39% of enterprise leaders deploy foundational models in production without heavy tuning. In contrast, 62% now favor task-trained or retrieval-augmented models embedded into native apps. Apple's approach fits this need. Embedded intelligence, not generative speculation. Greyhound Fieldnote. Per a recent Greyhound Fieldnote from a Japanese pharmaceutical major, Gen AI deployments for documentation assistance showed sub-80% accuracy using foundation models, triggering user rework. A switch to Apple Intelligence, restricted to device calendars and clinical records, improved accuracy and reduced hallucinations. Task focus, not token count, drove adoption. WWDC 2025 repositions Apple OSes and interfaces for spatial and multi-device futures. Greyhound Flashpoint. Beyond AI, Apple's WWDC 2025 was a systems-level reset. The firm debuted year-based OS naming, iOS 26, macOS 26, a unified liquid glass interface design, and Vision Pro enhancements, all designed to unify visual language and capability across devices. Per Greyhound CIO Pulse 2025, 49% of digital workplace leads site interface cohesion as a top factor in software standardization. Greyhound Standpoint. According to Greyhound Research, Apple's operating system evolution is less about software updates and more about establishing a long-term identity for a multi-device, spatially aware future. The Liquid Glass UI reinforces visual continuity, while changes to notification structure and context menus suggest foundational prep for spatial computing ubiquity. The emphasis was not on shock, but on scaffolding. Greyhound Pulse. Greyhound CIO Pulse 2025 indicates that 46% of IT decision-makers are increasingly prioritizing cross-device UI predictability in their digital estate planning. Apple's standardized versioning and transparency-rich interface overhaul meets this ask, especially in BYOD and extended reality deployments. Greyhound Fieldnote. Per a recent Greyhound Fieldnote from a Silicon Valley fintech, design leads observed user confusion due to inconsistent interaction models across macOS, iOS, and Vision Pro. The move to harmonize design standards, especially persistent spatial widgets and cross-device live activities, was welcomed as a precondition for enterprise-grade interface engineering. Analyst in focus, Sanchit Veer Gogia. Sanchit Veer Gogia, or SVG as he is popularly known, is a globally recognized technology analyst, innovation strategist, digital consultant, and board advisor. SVG is the chief analyst, founder, and CEO of Greyhound Research, a global, award-winning technology research, advisory, consulting, and education firm. Greyhound Research works closely with global organizations, their CXOs, and the board of directors on technology and digital transformation decisions. SVG is also the founder and CEO of the House of Greyhound, an eclectic venture focusing on interdisciplinary innovation. Copyright policy. All content contained on the Greyhound Research website is protected by copyright law and may not be reproduced, distributed, transmitted, displayed, published, or broadcast without the prior written permission of Greyhound Research or, in the case of third-party materials, the prior written consent of the copyright owner of that content. You may not alter, delete, obscure, or conceal any trademark, copyright, or other notice appearing in any Greyhound Research content. We request our readers not to copy Greyhound Research content and not republish or redistribute them, in whole or partially, via emails or republishing them in any media, including websites, newsletters, or intranets. We understand that you may want to share this content with others, so we've added tools under each content piece that allow you to share the content. If you have any questions, please get in touch with our community relations team at connect@thoffer.com.